Today I'm going to show you how to make this super adorable worm on a string hand towel, kitchen towel. It's basically just a much smaller version of my worm on a string scarf. The pattern is very similar, just a few tweaks here and there to make it into a hand towel or a kitchen towel or just something to hang up and look at. I will give you all of my pattern notes and measurements down below in the description box, so be sure to check that out. I highly recommend making this out of a thicker cotton, like a kitchen cotton, especially if you are going to be giving it away to friends and you anticipate them using it as a kitchen towel or a hand towel. Now for mine, I am using just an acrylic yarn, and I'm using the Big Twist Value yarn. I'll be making mine today in a blue, so I have a blue worm and a pink worm. You'll also need a little bit of eye coloring, so black for the centers, white for the outside of the eyes. You won't need very much of the white or the black. You will need a little bit for the main color of your worm. I recommend just grabbing a few balls, especially if you're using cotton and those yardages tend not to be as much as if you buy an acrylic. Now if you're using an acrylic yarn, then I would say 100 yards maybe might be overestimating it. I'm really not very good with judging how much yarn I use when I'm doing a project. But just know that this does take a little bit of yarn for the main color, because you're working all the way up and you're just working double crochets for the main body, and then we're working a little bit of decreasing for the head, increasing for the tail. We're going to add a little hook, optional, if you want to hook this up on a little knob in your kitchen. This can also be folded over the handle of the stove, so you've got that option as well. You can also add the little hook like this, little chain hook on his little nose or on his little tail, and hang him up, straight up or upside down. Lots of options here, but they come out super cute and they're super handy, and it's quite a conversation starter when somebody comes over and sees your little worm on a string hand towel. Now, like I said, I have a worm on a string pattern and tutorial for a scarf version of this. So if you're looking for some gift ideas, this is a perfect set. You've got the worm on a string scarf and a little accent hand towel, or just decoration if you hang him up. Now I'm going to be using a 5mm crochet hook for this one. You can use whatever hook size you want. Just know that if you go down a hook size, this will be much smaller. If you go up hook sizes, this will be a much bigger hand towel. To start, you want a slip knot on your hook. We're going to chain 3. We're going to put a single crochet into that middle stitch and into that first chain, I should say. So now we've got 2 stitches. We're going to chain 1, turn our work. We're going to single crochet into the 2 chains, or 2 stitches. 1 and another single crochet into the last 2 stitches. We're going to start our increase, so we're going to chain 1, turn. We're going to work 2 single crochets into these 2 stitches. So into the first stitch you want to put 2 single crochets, and into the next 2 single crochets. You should have 4 stitches. And since we're working the tail, this will be our increase. So the tail will look more like a V then we'll work up the body, and then we'll decrease for the little worm head. Chain 1, turn. We're going to work a single crochet into every stitch, so you should have 4 single crochets. Four single crochets. We're at another increase row. Here we're going to start working half double crochets. We want to chain 2, turn. Your chain 2 does not count as a stitch, so you want to work a half double crochet right back into that first stitch and work one more half double crochet into that same stitch, and that is our increase. So we've worked 2 half double crochets into that stitch. Over the next 2 stitches you just want to work 1 half double crochet into each of those stitches, and into that final last stitch we're going to work 2 half double crochets. You should now have 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Chain 2, and this is not an increase row. Turn your work. Remember, the chain 2 does not count, so we need to put a half double crochet into that first stitch, and there is your stitch that counts. We're going to work all the way across, 1 half double crochet into each stitch, and you'll still have 6 stitches at the end of this row. Chain 2. This is an increase row, so you're going to be alternating between an increase and then just a regular half double crochet all the way across. On the increase rows, you're going to chain 2 and work 2 half double crochets into that same stitch. So because remember, the chain 2 does not count as anything. So there's my first and here's my second half double crochet. You're going to work a half double crochet into each stitch across until you get to the last one. And then there's our last stitch. I'm going to work 2 half double crochets into that stitch. And sometimes these are hard to work into because it's that last stitch and it's part of that chain 2. You just want to make sure you're getting under the stitch, both of those loops under the stitch. Once you get that first one in, the second one is easy. So now you should have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's a good way to keep on track. Every increase row you're going to increase by 2 stitches. So I have 8. My next row, chain 2, turn. Always remember this is a non-increase row because we're alternating. And always remember to go right back into that same first stitch to work your half double crochet because that chain 2 does not count. And a half double crochet into each stitch all the way across. You'll still have 8 total stitches for this row. And like I said, if you ever are unsure if you've worked into the last stitch or if you've accidentally increased, just count your stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Just remember that the little one right on the side, that chain 2, does not count. Chain 2, turn, and this is an increase row. So remember, for every increase row, we're going to work 2 half double crochets into that first stitch and a half double crochet over the next 6. At the last stitch, you want to put 2 half double crochets, and that will increase your count, your overall stitch count, by 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Chain 2, working just 1 half double crochet into every stitch across for this row. I now have 14 stitches running across. We're going to change up the pattern just a little bit. We're going to chain 2 and turn, and at this point we're going to be increasing every row. So no more alternating, we're just going to do a straight increase every row, increasing on each side. So it's going to be the same as before. We're going to work 2 half double crochets in the first stitch, work 1 half double crochet all the way across, putting 2 in the last stitch again. So you're going to be increasing by 2 stitches on every row now. You want to work this way until you have 30 total stitches running across. I've just worked my last increase. I have 30 stitches running all the way across. Now here's the easy part. For the next several rows, you're going to work double crochets. Now what we're doing is working from this, here's our tail, this end here, we're just going to work double crochets until we want to start shaping the head. For me, on this pink one, that was about 25 rows, or if you're measuring from the start of your tail, about 23 inches from this start of your tail all the way through your body length before you start shaping the head. So to do these next rows, we're going to chain 3, turn. Now this double crochet, this chain 3 counts as a double crochet. So you've already got your stitch worked into that one. You don't have to work into this one as you've been doing with the half double crochet rows. So we're just going to work right into the next one, and we're going to work a double crochet. And like I said, if you're ever confused on the count, your count should always have an even number, your stitches, in every row. So I'm going to keep working my double crochet rows until I get the length of the body of worm that I want. So this pattern is customizable in that you can create a much longer body, as we did with the worm on a string scarf. For the hand towels or the cute little accent decor for your house, I have decided to shorten that up a little bit. But again, it is completely optional. If you want to make a much shorter worm, then don't work as many rows for the body. Now that being said, if you're going to fold your worm over, you do want to have a good size length of your body so this head and his little string can fold over nicely onto the back part. So just keep that in mind. As you're working, you can start to fold your work and see where you want the head and the string part of your worm to lie, and then just keep going and customize it like that. So for me, I'm going to work about 25 double crochet rows, always remembering that my chain 3 to start each row does count as a double crochet. Once you have the length that you want for the body of your worm, so for me that was about 25 double crochet rows, and my worm measures just about 23 inches. But again, that's customizable. Now we're going to shape the worm head. To do that, we're going to work some decrease rows. Chain 2, turn. We're going to work a decrease over the next 2 stitches. So your chain 2 does count at this point, so we want to work a decrease over the next 2 stitches. So yarn over, put your hook in that first stitch, yarn over, pull back through 2. There's 2 loops on your hook. Decrease again, so put your hook in the next stitch, yarn over, pull back through 2. You have 3 stitches on your 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull back through all 3. And that's how we're going to decrease. To continue, we're going to work a double crochet into every stitch all the way across until we get to the last 3 stitches. So remember that your turning chain here is actually a stitch. If you get confused, if you think you have an extra stitch or one less stitch, always count your stitches at the end of each row, at least for the first few rows, to make sure that you know that you're going into the correct stitches, that you have the right count. So I had 30 stitches across. I am now decreasing a stitch on each side. So that chain 2 counts as a stitch. I've made these next 2 stitches into 1 stitch. So I'm going to work across, and I should have 28 stitches after I finish my decrease on this side. I'm at this end now. I have 3 stitches, so remember, here's 2 stitches, and that turning chain, the top of that counts as a stitch. So we want to decrease over these 2 stitches. Ignore this turning chain for now. We're going to do the same thing, yarn over, put your hook in that first stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over, pull back through 2. 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over, pull back through 2. You should have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull back through all 3, and then work a double crochet into the top of that turning chain. Now you're going to work this decrease pattern until you have 14 stitches across. So let's work another row together, chain 2, turn. Remember, this counts as my stitch, so I want to work into the next 2 stitches. Yarn over, put my hook through that first stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over, pull back through 2, yarn over into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, back through 2, and yarn over, pull back through the 3 loops on your hook, and you've decreased. So there's our decrease, there's our 1 stitch now, and that chain 2 is technically our turning chain and counts as a stitch. We're going to work a double crochet all the way across until we get to the last 3, and then we'll do another decrease. Alright, so this end can get a little bit confusing because that is where we first started, the first row of decrease. So we started with 30 total stitches. The first row decrease, we should have 28 stitches. The second row decrease, we should have 26 stitches. So I've got my turning chain here, that counts, so that's the end. Here's our first stitch we need to decrease on. There's our second, those are the last 3. So I'm going to work a double crochet into this next one, and then I can work over the last 3 stitches. So again, we're going to work the decrease, and then work a double crochet into the top of the turning chain. And that is the most confusing thing about this pattern, is remembering to work into the turning chain. But as long as you remember that, you'll have a nice straight edge and your stitch count will remain correct. So on these decrease rows, you want to remember to chain 2 to start, which counts as a stitch, decrease over the next 2 stitches, work a double crochet all the way across until you get to the last 3 stitches, remembering that this turning chain here counts as a stitch. There's our decrease, so that's 1 stitch. There's another stitch, so 1, you're going to decrease over those 2, and then a double crochet into that last stitch, which is the turning chain. So work the decrease rows until you have 14 stitches running across, and then we'll continue to shape the head, make some eyes, and finish up our little worm on a string hand towels. Once you have your 14 stitches running across, you've decreased until you have 14. The next row we're going to chain 2, turn. For this decrease row, we're going to work over the next 3 stitches. So you want to follow the same decrease principle that we've been doing. You're just going to work it over another stitch. So yarn over, this chain 2 counts, so find that next first stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull back through 2. Yarn over, go through the next, pull up a loop, yarn over, back through 2. Now at this point, normally we would yarn over, go back through all 3, but we're going to work over 1 more stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, back through 2. Now we've got 4. Now yarn over and pull back through all 4 stitches. We've decreased over those 3 stitches. We're going to work a double crochet across. When you come to this end, you should have 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3 in the top of our turning chain. We're going to decrease over those 3 stitches and work a double crochet into the top of the turning chain. So yarn over, put your hook through, yarn over, back through 2. Yarn over, find the next stitch, do the same thing. Now we've got 3 loops, yarn over into that next stitch, yarn over. Now we've got 4 loops, yarn over, pull back through all 4 loops, and then work your double crochet in the top of that turning chain. At the end of this row, you should have 10 stitches across. For the next row, chain 2, turn. We're going to work the same thing again, yarn over, find that first stitch. Remember, this counts as a stitch, this turning chain, your chain 2. So find the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go back through 2, yarn over, go into the next 3 loops, and 1 more. 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull back through all 4, double crochet until you have 4 stitches left. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, so I just need 1 more double crochet, and now I can start the decrease on this end. Yarn over, 2 loops, into the next, 3 loops, into the next, 4 loops, yarn over, pull back through all loops, and then work a double crochet in the top of that turning chain. So now you should have 6 stitches. You can always count your stitches here. Sometimes it's confusing with these decreases, the larger decreases, but if you turn your work like this, you can see the stitches better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it's hard to see here, but you have your turning chain on this end. Now we're going to chain 2. We're going to work the string part of the worm. So all you want to do is half double crochet into all of these 6 stitches here. Once you have the desired length of your string, you can fasten off. And go ahead and weave in your tails. Now, if you want your string to hang from this worm, you can create a chain loop at this point before you fasten off, and then you'll have the option to hang him up from the end of the string. If you don't, fasten off, cut your yarn, weave in your ends, and it is time to put on some eyes. So you're going to want to lay your worm out. Here is our tail, here is our head and the string, and see how you want him to lie. It just depends on how far you want his little nose to come down. I like to put the eyes right sort of where my decreases are in this area, but once you have the eyes made, you can put them on and see where they look best. So let's go ahead and make some eyes. You want to make 2 eyes, so I'm going to show you how to make one of them, then you'll make another, and then we can put them on our worm and create the little chain loop up here, and then we'll be done. For the eyes, you're going to want to take your black yarn, and this may be a little bit hard to see since it's black. You want a magic ring. Once you have your magic ring, you're going to chain 3 and work 7 double crochets right into that magic ring. Once you have your 7 double crochets, pull your center and slip stitch into the top of the first stitch that you did. Again, this is going to be hard to see on camera because of the black yarn, but you've got a circle. You can fasten off and bring in your white. We're going to work a slip stitch with the white, or a slip knot I should say, onto our hook. Grab your black circle here and just slip stitch to any stitch. It doesn't matter where you do it. Just put a slip stitch in. We're going to chain 3. We're going to work a double crochet right back into that same stitch. And 2 double crochets into every stitch around. So this first round you had 8 total stitches. For this second round you're going to have 16. So 2 double crochets into every stitch all the way around for a total of 16 double crochet stitches. Once you have your 2 double crochets into every stitch and 16 stitches around, you're just going to slip stitch to the top of that chain 3 that we did to start the round. The next round we're going to chain 2. We're going to work a half double crochet into that very same place that we just chained out of. Into the next stitch, 1 half double crochet. Into the next stitch, 2 half double crochets. Into the next 1 half double crochet, and that's the pattern. So you're just going to alternate 2 half double crochets, 1 half double crochet, 2 half double crochets, 1 half double crochet into every stitch around. At the end of this round you should have 24 total stitches. When you're back around and you have your 24 total stitches, just work a slip stitch into the top of that beginning chain 2 and fasten off. Now I like to leave a long tail for the eyes when I'm fastening off, so I have enough left to sew them to my worm. So now we've got 2 eyes. We are ready to put these on our worm. So you just want to lay your worm flat, and like I said, see how far down you want him to be folded over. Grab your eyes. Now I haven't taken care of any of these ends, what I like to do is just tie a knot with the black yarn. One more just to secure it gently, and you can cut off the little bit of excess that you have, but this will just be underneath the eye. So wherever you decide to place your eye, that way you don't have to worry about weaving in those ends. For the white, you can use this tail if you want to weave in the center, or if you have a long enough tail on this outer end, you can just use this end tail to sew on your eye. If you don't have long tails, just grab another piece of yarn, or you can use thread or whatever you have available to sew these eyes on. So you just kind of want to place your eyes anywhere on your worm, and you can just sew them on. So I'm going to take my long end, thread my needle, and what I like to do is just go through each stitch, and then depending on where I have it laid out, pick up a stitch from those double crochets or those half double crochets on my worm. If you pick it up in the front, you won't have much showing in the back. So for example, on this worm, you can't even really tell where I sewed these eyes on, because I'm working in the front of these stitches as I'm sewing on my eyes. However, you can sew these eyes on however you're comfortable doing it. You just want to make sure that they're relatively even. If it's helpful, use some pins to mark where these eyes should go as you're sewing them in so they don't move around on you. So I'm going to go ahead, sew on my eyes, and then we'll put on the little hook at the top and we'll be done. I have sewn my eyes on. You can see, you can't tell from the back because I have sewn the eyes using the tops of these stitches here from our main body of the worm. Now, if you want to put a hook on your worm, you want to start figuring out how far up on the body you want that hook. So I like to lay him out. You can also take him into the kitchen or wherever you have a little hook and just play with it. If you want the hook way up here by his eyes, that's fine. If you want the hook further down the body, that's fine. Just find a spot that you are happy adding that hook to. For me, I'm going to work about 4 or 5 rows up from the top of my eyes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So on this row here, so I'm just going to fold it like this so I know that's where I'm working. And we're going to work around the posts of these double crochets. So grab your hook and some yarn to match, doesn't have to match, but whatever color you want for this hook. And we're going to put a slip knot onto our hook. Now I like to just kind of eyeball it, but you can of course count in on each sides to find the exact middle and then work out a stitch or two on each side. What you want to do is work around the post. So I'm going to find the middle and then I'm just going to work around that post. I'm just going to slip stitch and then I'm going to chain. So I like to say about 6 chains, but it really depends on how large of a hook you want. If you're unsure of the size of your knob or whatever you're going to hang this on, then add a few extra. So chain at least 6, skip 2 of these stitches here, and then work around the post of the next one and just slip stitch, and then you've got your hook. You can always leave it like this. Go test to see if this is a large enough hook. If it is, you can fasten off. If you need to take out some chains, add some chains, whatever you need to do to get the length and the size of this hook, go ahead and do it, and then you can slip stitch. Remember to work around the post of that double crochet and fasten off. And now I have 2 worm on a string hand towels. You can also use them as decor around the house. Again, if these are going to get a lot of use in the kitchen or the bathroom, I suggest making these out of cotton. Cotton stands up better, and it is better with things that are going to be hot. However, I have just made mine out of acrylic because I want to just hang these around the house for fun. These also make wonderful little gifts for kids. They can drag them around. It's almost like a security blanket, but on a very small level. They can grab the little string and drag it around. Lots of good ideas with this pattern and this project. And again, if you want to match this up and make a matching scarf, I have a pattern and tutorial available, and I will link that down below in the description box. Thanks so much for watching. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. Until next time, happy crocheting, everyone. Bye!